Maria.
Who is Beatrix?
No. Watson?
Who is Wilhelmina?
That is correct.
Humans communicate very fluently in natural language. And that's where computers struggle dramatically. And that's where we want to make them better.
This U.S. president negotiated the Treaty of Portsmouth, ending the Russo-Japanese War. Watson?
Who is Theodore Roosevelt?
Good for $800.
Jeopardy questions are tricky. They have puns in them, they have little jokes in them.
A famous red-coiffed clown, or just any incompetent fool. Watson?
Who is Bozo?
Nice! Good job, Watson.
I think we've gone from impressed to blown away.
This is really remarkable performance. And we know of no computer system that can come anywhere close to doing this question-answering task.
Watson is the confirmed champion for this game.
But the reality is that being able to win a game at Jeopardy doesn't mean you completely conquered the language understanding test. Far from it.
In REM's It's the End of the World as We Know It, two of the men with the initials LB. Watson?
What is I Feel Fine?
Ooh, no.
The worst thing is if Watson just crashes in the middle of the game. That's what you don't want. But then the second worst thing is if you have some horrible bug where Watson starts getting everything wrong.
What are trousers?
No.
What is harness racing?
No.
What is Taxi to the Dark Side?
No.
What is artificial sweetener?
Come on now. No.
What is milk?
No. Very nicely done.
Both beat them.
Good for you.
Humans!
This is triage. There's a million things to consider here. This is just one.
We're going to run out of time. We're going to run out of time.
Our responsibility to the scientific community is to push this technology as hard as we possibly can. Because when we get out there in public, what we're demonstrating is what is the state of the art? What can we really do?
It's limitless, the number of things you could potentially apply this to.
Watson, you have control.
Okay, so that's Watson from a technological point of view. And you might be asking, did Watson win Jeopardy? Well, yes. It beat the two reigning champions at Jeopardy and actually won all the money. I'm not sure what we did with the money. I hope we gave it back. So what's this got to do with medicine and healthcare? Why is this of any relevance to what we're talking about today? Well, we've actually put Watson through medical school because we think this technology has the potential to really do some remarkable things in the healthcare space. We don't know what these are. We're exploring it, and we've been working with two schools of medicine, Maryland School of Medicine and Columbia. And here's some citations from a couple of the professors there, the doctors there rather, about, you can read for yourself, about the prospect of applying Watson technology. And in fact, we've now made some progress because that Jeopardy game that we won was about a year ago, and things have moved on. We've now got people using Watson for real in a healthcare setting. We've started to apply it effectively in a healthcare setting. So again, for the last time, I'll just ask Dave to pop up this final video on what's happening with Watson in healthcare, just to give you an idea about why we think it's relevant.
In Jeopardy, built into the game is this notion of confidence, that it's not worth answering unless you're sure. And in the real world, there are lots of problems like that. You don't want your doctor to guess. You want him to have confidence in his answer before he decides to give you a treatment.
You're never going to replace a trained doctor or a nurse, but certainly a system like Watson could be a physician's assistant. It could help to check on things. Did you consider this? Did you consider that?
The management of diseases is phenomenally complicated for any given, especially chronic disease. There are all sorts of nuances. It's not one size fits all.
Suppose a 45-year-old guy walks in with chest pains. How are you going to decide how best to treat him, not just to treat the average 45-year-old guy with chest pains?
We've got patients that are incredibly complex with what I would call, or computer scientists would call, conditionals. All that is computable.
Watson will be able to look at all of that information and answer questions about it.
Watson is very applicable to those kinds of queries. And the urgency of that, the speed of it.
20% of medical errors are diagnostic errors. And it's not that they're missed diagnoses, often they're delayed. Watson has the capacity to get the diagnosis up there sooner.
Suppose you're a clinician, a doctor, a nurse trying to diagnose a very complex case. You have some ideas, but in order to confirm your hypothesis, confirm what you think is wrong, you need a lot of information.
For at least 30 years, it's been humanly impossible for a physician to master all the material they need to practice at the highest level. Biomedical literature has doubled in size every 7 years, but the patients want those facts at the doctor's fingertips.
We would like some help to narrow the choices and ultimately pick the right decision. And I think in that regard, Watson is a very necessary advance.
It is the effective and efficient storage, retrieval, analysis, and use of biomedical information to improve health. At the end of the day, the goal is to improve health.
Thank you. So that's a bit about Watson, and it is futuristic, but it's actually here now. It's not here in this room or here in the city, but it exists. The technology is here. And when you think about it, the kind of technology that would have filled a room of this size 30 years ago, you now have in your pocket. Your mobile phone has many times much more computing power than the computers used to launch the moonshots, the Apollo mission. So the technology comes down in price. So it's just a matter of time before this starts to become pervasively available, either through the cloud, through using online services, or ultimately you'll be able to stick a Watson in your pocket. That'll be the future. So with that, let me just summarize. We think that clinicians have had high expectations of medical IT for over 50 years. The first electronic health records were deployed in about 1964 by IBM. In fact, in Akron, Ohio, I think was the city where we deployed it. But we're still waiting on the full promise to be delivered. We've made progress, but there's still more work to be done to deliver the benefits of digital health information. We're now entering the age of analytics, with the possibility of harnessing the processing power and the networks that we have in the interest of evidence-based medicine and clinical decision support. And as William Gibson is said to have said, the future is already here, it's just not very evenly distributed. Thank you very much. I can take questions if there are already. There's one up here.
You were talking earlier about linking patients' electronic records.
Yes.
Certainly in A&E, that still doesn't happen. Like the smart rooms technology all looks amazing, all this great technology on our fingertips, and then there's some quite basic stuff that still doesn't happen. So, for example, we spend quite a lot of time and energy trying to prevent people coming into A&E if they don't really need to.
Yes.
And to utilise their GP practices more appropriately.
Yes.
But the patient's choice is to present themselves to A&E if they choose to. And we often just have their word to go by. Sometimes they may have seen their general practitioner several times, but just aren't happy with the management they're getting, so they decide to come for a second opinion. We can't access any records apart from a list of medications. Why is that not happening, do you think? It seems like when you compare it to some of the things you've been talking about, that's fairly basic technology.
Yeah, it is. I think you'll have to ask some of your clinical colleagues why that's not happening to an extent. I mean, what we're talking about here is joining up the health record. The idea that you create one single health record in some database in a data center has kind of been discredited. The idea now is that it should be possible to retrieve what you need when you need it from the various different sources that you have. Now, in Scotland, you're actually quite lucky because you've got the emergency care summary record, which is a step in the right direction. Now, if you take that ECS system and expand it out, which I think Libby Morris is now doing with the key information summary and the palliative care summary, I think that's taking you in the right direction, which is creating this, this essential information to provide better care. But as I said, this is really it's a journey about how you start to join this information together. Every country is struggling with the same problem. Some of it's technical, but not very much of it's technical. It's the technology is there to allow us to do this. More of it's to do with worries about data confidentiality, to do with siloed information that people feel rather protective about. And I think it's just a matter of time, really, before the information that is held about our health conditions starts to flow more like liquid. It will happen. It's just, you know, we have to keep making the case for why it's important, and demonstrating that if we don't get the information we need where it's needed, then that's a big problem. That's a big problem.
David, thank you for a fascinating talk, which I think we'll be speaking about later. Right near the end, you mentioned, or one of your quotations was that delayed diagnosis is much commoner than misdiagnosis, and I actually had to go back to the hospital for a morbidity and mortality meeting. Mm-hmm. 2 of the 6 patients we discussed, the diagnosis was made 4 or 5 days after they came into hospital. Mm-hmm. It was partly because somebody had mentioned something else, and then that was continued, so the diagnosis momentum concept that I put forward this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think the interesting thing about, you know, a technology like Watson is it doesn't have any professional pride. You know, it can operate in System 2, and if it gets it wrong, it will go back and try again until it gets it right. So I think if you've got the doctor operating in System 1 of the cognitive process and Watson by his side doing System 2 stuff, that's quite a nice combination. Any other questions? Okay, again, thank you very much. Thank you.